Leading up to its release, the conversation surrounding Disney's The Little Mermaid remake was that, like the Lion King and Aladdin remakes before, it should break the billion-dollar threshold at the box office. But now that the opening weekend numbers are in, it is clear that that will not happen. The big question now is how far away from that it will end up, and from there, how big a loss it will be for Disney. Because make no mistake about it, The Little Mermaid is, as of this moment, an underperformer, and after next weekend, we could very well be addressing it as a certified flop. In this editorial, I will break down why that is and how it arguably already has flopped internationally, before looking at the glorious cope from an entertainment media complex that desperately wanted the movie to break that billion-dollar threshold. Domestically, the movie opened in the $117 million range, and intuitively that may sound like a lot, and for movies with a more modest budget it would have been a lot. But this movie isn't modestly budgeted. With a listed production cost of $250 million, which they will admit to, meaning the real cost was probably much higher, and with promotion and release costs that probably approach that, this movie needed to open tens of millions higher domestically in order for the studio to breathe a sigh of relief. Some may want to point to Aladdin, which appears to have had a similar opening dollar for dollar, but I stressed appears, because appearances can be deceiving. Between Aladdin and now, ticket prices have increased by nearly 30%, which means that about 30% fewer went out to see this movie than did the Aladdin remake. If actual attendance had been the same between the two, the domestic box office should have been about 30% higher, and if it was, we would be having a very different conversation right now. But it didn't. It opened to 117-something million domestically, and given the current level of ticket prices and the cost that went into making the movie, that simply isn't good enough, and puts it squarely in underperforming territory. The only thing that could have saved it from here on out would have been amazing word of mouth, but it doesn't have that. What it does have is amazing Spider-Man competition already next week. What seals this movie's fate though is the international box office, or rather the lack of it. One of the justifications for the increased emphasis of diversity and inclusion in Disney's live-action remakes, as well as a whole host of other productions, is to reflect what the world actually looks like, so more people can see themselves in it, and therefore go see the movie in question. Well, the world outside of North America just squashed that argument, because The Little Mermaid earned less than $70 million in the entire rest of the world, despite opening in most major markets. That's no mere underperformance, that's worldwide rejection, from which there is no coming back. Outside of North America, The Little Mermaid is dead in the water. That is why I have no qualms about labeling this movie as an underperformer, which is destined to be a flop. It simply didn't open big enough in North America, and it won't earn anything to speak of anywhere else, and that is fine. If this were any other movie, from any other studio, the entirety of the entertainment media complex would have had no issue in admitting that, ripping off the band-aid as it were, and move on. In this particular case though, the cognitive dissonance of doing that would just have been too great. Instead of just admitting that the movie underperformed in North America and bombed pretty much everywhere else, the entertainment media complex ran cover for it, which was done in primarily two ways. The first way is to soften the blow. This begins with pretending that the numbers are actually good, hiding behind some bullcrap metrics like this being the 5th biggest Memorial Day opener in history, while conveniently ignoring that the other 4 cost less to make and open when ticket prices weren't as inflated as now, and then from there gently let people know that this is actually pretty bad.
So there's still some hope. There's still a sliver of hope for The Little Mermaid to join the $1 billion club because, well, domestically it's on par with Aladdin, but Worldwide, unfortunately, it is not. But considering that Disney's live-action remakes have consistently joined the billion-dollar club as of late, it would not be great for The Little Mermaid if it failed to do so. However, I think Disney would be happy with a worldwide total of, at least if it was over 700 million, and they would be ecstatic with anything over 800 million, considering how well the movie will likely play down the line on Disney+. But to be honest, as I said with this debut, I'm seeing more of a 6 or maybe even a 5 in front of The Little Mermaid's global total. But I certainly hope that's not the case. That would be bad. If that were to happen, I think it would speak to Disney's complex political situation right now, how the pandemic and streaming have changed the theatrical space. A lot of franchises and movies are struggling, not just Disney's.
You know it's bad when Grace Randolph, one of the movie's biggest cheerleaders going into it, tacitly talks about how the lead's career can be salvaged after this.
But Halle Bailey fans, I think you can feel good that her star is definitely launched, with this and The Color Purple already coming out later this year to help cement her as a serious actress. That's a great 1-2 punch. But it is hard for actresses these days still to find good roles, especially actresses of color. Look at all the incredible actresses in the Black Panther franchise who can't get very much work outside of that. And that's a lot of competition for Halle Bailey for any role that comes up. So Bailey and her team are going to have to work hard to build her career long term.
The other line of cope, because I said there were two, is to claim that the movie is being, wait for it, review bombed. The recurring narrative across the entirety of the entertainment media complex is that the movie is being review bombed by the same minority of haters that review bombs everything else when they conveniently need an excuse. But now, that minority of haters have gone international as well. Just look at this headline from Deadline Hollywood. The Little Mermaid splashes to 164 million global bow, which is pathetic. But there's something fishy overseas as Disney pick beset by review bombing. The article writes, while the Rob Marshall-directed update has a 95% verified audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. That then is what the entertainment media complex views as the baseline that every other metric should be like, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Keep that in mind as we move along here. Film ratings websites overseas, including IMDb in the UK, Brazil and Mexico, as well as Allociné in France, posted advisories during the rollout when negative user reviews appeared in questionable abundance.
Here it comes.
As we noted in our global preview, The Little Mermaid was expected to be more of a domestic play at the outset. So you already knew. However, it's fairly astonishing to see these overseas reactions, largely believed to be led by internet trolls. Oh, come on, no one believes that. In France, where The Little Mermaid launched on Wednesday, Allociné wrote, probably because Disney asked them to, "We are currently observing an unusual distribution of scores which demands the need for caution. We encourage you to make up your own mind about the film. While not unprecedented, this is a rare move." And then there is a dose of reality. To be fair, critics at some respected outlets, including Libération, Premiere and Les Inrecuptibles, did not like the movie, giving it just 1 star. And that's how you know this is all copium. This is all trying to reduce their cognitive dissonance. They have to admit that even professional international reviewers absolutely hated the movie, but that international audiences could do the same? Unthinkable. The movie got 95% on Rotten Tomatoes in the US, so it must have been review bombed everywhere else, right? Instead of me countering that, let's just read one of the comments under this very Deadline Hollywood article. Tonic says, actually, no, Rotten Tomatoes is manipulating the user score. If all other sources say one thing and Rotten Tomatoes says something completely different, I'd wager it's Rotten Tomatoes being fishy, not the rest of the entire world. And that, of course, is the reality of the situation. It is the Rotten Tomato score that by all accounts has been review bombed in a positive direction. All those other sites around the world aren't being review bombed so much as they're just seeing the results of their audience rejecting the movie. And the proof of that is in the pudding. At a less than $70 million international opening, practically no one saw the movie in the first place, and the ones that did told everyone else to stay the hell away. There really is no bigger mystery to it. The international audience simply weren't buying what Disney was selling. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments.